Dipty's across the desk from where Anka's sitting. You're starting with that ongoing crisis on your Dipty over security barriers in the papers at the al-Aqsa compound in Jerusalem.
Well, that al-Aqsa compound is a very sensitive site, both for Jewish people and Muslims. The security barriers were put up by Israeli authorities after an Israeli person was shot dead, but it's seen as an impediment by Muslim worshippers. After days of unrest, Israeli authorities say they could be open to relaxing those security restrictions. For one Haaretz writer, which is an Israeli paper, it proves that Israel only reconsiders its actions after blood has been spilt. I'm quoting there. The writer says Israel is imprisoned on Temple Mount, as it's known to Jewish people, in a, quote, cast iron pillory. The key to opening the lock is through, quote, comprehensive diplomatic change and negotiations. To that effect, the Jerusalem Post, another Israeli paper, reports that Donald Trump's man for international negotiations, Jason Greenblatt, has arrived in the region alongside Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, to try and at least to help diffuse the situation.
What about the Arab language press then, Dipty? What are they saying about it?
Well, there are some powerful reactions from the Arab language press as well. Let's start with a cartoon from Al-Quds, which is a London-based Arab paper. Here you see the man representing the Arab League that's painted a red line, presumably from blood. The quote there says that the al-Aqsa compound is a red line that visibly in this cartoon an Israeli soldier has crossed by imposing those security measures. Now, another paper, Al-Ghad, which is a Jordanian paper, says that the international community has really rallied behind to try and solve this Israeli-Palestinian conflict. They've doubled down efforts to solve what the paper calls the most important crisis in the Middle East. Yet it says these efforts are not enough. They're insufficient in stopping, quote, the violations committed by the colonizer Israel. So very strong language there from the Arab press.
Let's talk about Turkey now. That story we were talking about with Jasper earlier on. 17 reporters from Cumhuriyet going on trial today.
And it's on the front page of the French paper Libération. In fact, they've sort of dedicated a special edition to this trial. On the front page of Libé there, they say this is a press according to Recep Tayyip Erdogan. You see those hands almost handcuffed coming through that paper there. In fact, some of the members of this paper, Cumhuriyet, have been invited to co-write today's edition. 17 journalists from that paper on trial in what The Guardian calls Turkey's assault on the press. Among the charges include are supporting terrorism, because some of the journalists are accused of aiding the separatist PKK group and the movement led by Fethullah Gulen, who was accused of launching that failed coup against the Turkish leader last year.
And the foreign press are really just very critical, aren't they, of what's happening here?
Very critical indeed. The German paper Deutsche Welle reminds us that President Erdogan has shut down 173 media outlets since that failed coup a year ago. The paper reminds us also that one of the writers, Ahmet Sik, was imprisoned back in 2011. Then it was because he criticized Fethullah Gulen, because at the time Gulen and Erdogan were on good terms. Now, for the reason that because they're not on good terms, he's again facing a trial, but for a completely different reason. For this reason, the paper calls the accusations, quote, nebulous, while in the Turkish paper, the Hurriyet Daily, columnist Murat Yetkin reminds us that, ironically, this trial is taking place today, July the 24th, which used to be celebrated in Turkey because it reflected the end of the official press censorship that existed under the Ottoman Empire. In fact, that was eradicated back in 1908. But, as you can imagine, this day of press freedom hasn't really been celebrated much in Turkey in recent years.
Let's move on to a concerning story. Now, this is about 6 Burundian school students. Now, they actually came to the US for a competition, but they never went back home again?
That's right. It's a really curious case of what happened to these 6 high school students from Burundi. They came to Washington last week to take part in an international robotics fair. However, when festivities wrapped up on Tuesday night, the students had left their dorm keys with their supervisor, packed their bags, and vanished. It's believed that some of them may have actually crossed into Canada, or they used the robotics fair as an occasion to try and stay in the U.S. And in fact, in this article from USA Today, the supervisor says what really turned his suspicions on was when he spoke to the parents of the children, who didn't seem surprised that their kids were missing. Burundi is, of course, a small African country. It's home to about 10 million people, but it's fairly impoverished, and as a result, it's experiencing a brain drain where some of the country's most brightest and smartest students are leaving the country for better opportunities elsewhere.
And finally from Dipti, we're going to end with a rather bizarre story. As part of Discovery Channel Shark Week, the retired swimming champion Michael Phelps, now he's actually raced a great white shark, well, kind of, sort of.
Sort of. He hasn't physically actually raced a great white shark, unfortunately.
Okay.
Although it was touted like that, many people tuned into this this race, if you like, because of that reason. In the end, what they did was they recorded a 100-meter speed of a great white shark, and then they compared it to Michael Phelps, who did actually swim the 100 meters. So anyway, it was kind of your Sunday night viewing pleasure. It was lampooned on Twitter just for the ridiculousness of the challenge. They did record the 100 meters of both shark and man, compared them, and turns out Michael Phelps is not faster than a great white shark. But people really geeked out with this. Like, there was lots of live tweeting moments, as you see from this Twitter user here, who actually dressed her dog up in a shark fin outfit. She donned shark socks for the occasion. She really got into it. Phelps, for his part, has offered a rematch to the as yet unnamed great white shark. He says he wants to challenge it to warmer waters next time. When it comes to ocean supremacy, I think sharks still do rule.
Yeah, just hope they keep going straight and don't turn off at an angle. That's what I'd be doing if I was Michael Phelps. All right, thanks to Dipti with the papers on France 24. Latest news, including an update, of course, on the latest situation in Kabul after the break.